Well, that was a movie.
Hello and welcome back to SimonsRants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on Guillermo del Toro's new movie, Nightmare Alley. It's got a great cast. It's starring Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Toni, Collette, Willem, Dafoe, Richard Jenkins, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman, Mary Steenburgen, Tim Blake Nelson, David Hewlett. It's just got a really good cast, and the acting is phenomenal. They all live up to their reputations in this movie. It's a really good cast. One thing I will say was I was a bit surprised with Bradley Cooper's casting in this movie. Seeing the role being acted out, it really to me felt more like a Hugh Jackman kind of role, but I thought Bradley Cooper did really well with it. It is really dark in here, isn't it? That didn't help at all. Sorry for the lighting, guys. I'm trying. Maybe if I sit like this, it'll help. But no, I think Bradley Cooper, despite being not who I would have probably cast in this movie, I thought he did really well with this role. So, by the way, in case you don't know what this plot is about, Bradley Cooper plays a carny who ends up getting into mentalism. And I don't want to give anything away with where the plot goes, but it's a cautionary tale, I would say, about what obsession can do to a man. And we've had a lot of those over the years. A lot of stories where a man meets a woman, everything seems to be going well, then there's an obsession that takes over and things start to go haywire. So you could say this is pretty boring on the surface, but I thought how it was told, the situation that it was put in, the different characters with the great cast, and great directing by Guillermo del Toro was enough to make this legitimately entertaining. I enjoyed this movie a lot. Not to say that it's a perfect movie. I think this movie had some flaws to it. In particular, I thought the ending, I don't know if I just didn't get it, but I thought it could have been better. It seemed a little bit off to me, but I still thought altogether this movie was good. I would give it a 7, I think, because even though the story is a bit predictable, and we've seen this kind of story done before, like I said, the cast is great, the directing, of course, is great by Guillermo del Toro, and then the writing, he wrote it, but he adapted it from a novel by William Lindsay Gresham, and the writing was, for the most part, pretty good. I will say it felt a bit rushed at times, which is kind of surprising considering this movie is 2.5 hours long. You wouldn't think there'd be much to rush through, but it really, to me, felt like the first hour was a movie, and then the next hour and a half was a sequel to that movie. And so the story, I haven't read the book, but I would assume that the story is a bit extensive, so it was hard to get through everything to get to the point, and they didn't want to leave out anything, so by not leaving out anything, they kind of did a disservice to some of the material by trying to focus on everything. That isn't the worst thing in the world, though. I enjoy that we went through this story because it's easy to gloss over certain parts, and they wanted to make sure that they went through the whole story. They gave Bradley Cooper's character a full character arc. We didn't jump in the middle of anything or skip anything. We got to see it all. I wish we could have spent a little more time with parts of it, but the movie could only be so long. It was 2.5 hours. So you could argue maybe this should have been a miniseries instead. That's a valid argument you could make, but as far as condensing this down to 2.5 hours, I thought that they did a really good job with it. It's one of those things where I was shocked that the movie was still going, but not in a bad way, because an hour in, it felt like, oh, this movie's wrapping up. We've wrapped up this story, and then I realized, I checked the time, and I was like, oh, there's still an hour and a half left. Where are we going? And that's why I'm saying, like, it felt like we did one complete story and then did a whole nother complete story. So maybe it should have been a miniseries. I don't know. But as far as what it was, as in a 2.5 hour movie, I thought it was done pretty well, especially with this time of year, watching all these movies, trying to get together a top 10 list. We've got all of these award seasons coming up, all of these different award shows coming up, and every good movie supposedly is coming out now, and it can get really tiring watching all of these movies. I just did a double feature. I watched another movie right before this, so this was my second movie today, and it's really easy to get bored quickly because if the movie's not grabbing you right away, you're like, screw it, this is wasting my time. But this movie really knew how to grab you right away with the visuals, with the storytelling. From the first minute, I was hooked because there's a pretty standard truth of storytelling that gets overlooked a lot, and that truth that rule is you need to start with something that grabs your attention, and then you can fill out the groundwork. I always made fun of Michael Crichton, the author. He wrote books like Jurassic Park. He always had the same formula, but it's because it worked. You would always start out with a death, and then you'd have about 5 chapters of exposition and science and boring stuff before then you get to the story again. And this did something similar by having an eye-catching moment at the beginning that got you interested, laid some groundwork, and then it went back and kind of built the world. And I really enjoyed that. And I think that a lot of movies don't know how to do that. That's a bit of a lost art when it comes to storytelling, is having something interesting right away. Not a lot of people know how to do that. And this movie did a good job of doing that. So I was pleasantly surprised with that, because so many movies, it ends up being a good movie, but for the first half hour, you're like, okay, where are we going with this? What are we even here for? What's going to happen? And there's still those questions in this movie because you don't know where it's going to go exactly when it first starts, but you know that whatever it's going to do, you're interested to find out what it is. You are invested already from the jump. You already want to know what this character is going to do, why these other situations are happening, and what that first image represents. So, yeah, the movie's not perfect, but it was certainly enjoyable. As long as you like the macabre and the gore of it, there's some graphic imagery, I think you'll be really invested in the story, and I think you'll want to see where it goes. Like I said, it is a bit predictable at times, but you enjoy the ride. It's not the most original story in the world either, but it is an enjoyable one. It is a well-told one. So I'm not saying it's movie of the year, but I'm saying it could be top 10. Like, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I don't know that this story would have been as good if it was told by other people. The cast and directing had a lot to do with it. It was a grand representation of the story we've seen before. Not perfect. Definitely flawed in some areas, definitely had some iffy writing, especially like I said at the ending, but overall a very good movie. So I enjoyed it a lot, but what do you guys think? If you saw it, let me know what you thought in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks guys, bye.